Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So our guest today for more than 10 years has been a used machinery dealer or treasure hunter, as he likes to call it, buying and selling equipment all over the world. He says that one of the keys to his success in business and in his personal life is being a serendipity magnet, constantly creating and seeing and seizing opportunities that surround him. He is also the host of the wonderful podcast, Swarfcast podcast, that helps professionals in precision machining excel in their business. So a very, 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 very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Noah Graff. How are you, Noah?
Oh, I'm great. It's a pleasure to be interviewed by you.
It's wonderful to have you for My Perfect Failure. So we had a wonderful initial discussion, and we thought, well, there's definitely synergy here. I was very keen on your the subject that we're going to cover today, actually, and I found your insights and a lot of the things that you covered during that initial call quite inspiring and interesting, and it was a lovely fit for My Perfect Failure. So everybody's thinking, what is the subject? What so intrigued Paul when they initially spoke? So there's a lot of things, but the subject that we're going to cover today is serendipity. And yeah, and so how we connected kind of like there was some serendipity involved in that from recollection. Maybe you might want to expand a little bit on that.
Well, I mean, before I go any further, even talking about that, you just listen to the name of your show, A Perfect Failure. I mean, a failure that is perfect. That means, from, even if I didn't even listen to your podcast, which I have, but a perfect failure to me would mean a failure that brought something positive out of it, which is that's serendipity. It's basically luck, making your own luck.
Yeah, and that's very interesting as well, because I think when difficult situations happen, which they do daily, and maybe not daily, but they do happen, which isn't a bad thing. But I think it's the way that it's the vantage point that we take. I think there are a number of different vantage points we can take when difficult things happen. And what's interesting to me is that using different techniques, being aware of different tools and techniques we can do, we can actually reframe those situations and really seize and hunt down the opportunities. And that's kind of like why I wanted to create My Perfect Failure, because I've had my own challenges, as most people do. And then sometimes you can feel lost if you're not around people like you and other people that want to really explore different narratives that we can use to kind of maybe change the outlook.
Sure. Well, shall I give you a little background on me, and then I'll tell you how I use serendipity?
Yeah, absolutely. The background on you, and then we can get into the meat and bones of serendipity.
Awesome. Okay, well, as we already said, my name's Noah Graff. I am a machinery dealer, or treasure hunter, as I like to say. I got into my business it was a family business. I actually was a film major in college, and then there was my my dad, my grandfather started this business buying and selling machines, used machines around the world. And my dad was in this business, but my dad was had a journalism master's, and so he decided he was going to start a business magazine about our industry, about it's called precision machining. So these are machines that make all the parts that go into all these other into everything else. So parts that go into cars and uh, aerospace and medical devices. They're made on these big machines that we sell. These are the machines that go into factories. So he had this magazine about the industry, and I was a recent college grad looking for something to do, and he lured me in by saying, "Oh, this was like 2005." He was just slightly ahead of his time. He's like, "Hey, broadband's coming. You know, you can do videos that go along with, you know, all the stories in the magazine." And I didn't really know what else to do at the time, so I joined up, and then I learned how to write and edit, and did make some videos, but the video part wasn't quite ready yet. And then so I worked in that for several years, and then we took the whole thing online because it's, you know, impossible to make money with a print magazine. Well, nothing's impossible, but it's not a good formula. So we took it all online around 2010, 2011, and we had more time. So I decided I would join the family business of buying these machines around the world. The reason I call it treasure hunting is because you know, well, it's these undervalued uh things. Other people have no idea what they're worth, and they're in the craziest places around the world. We've bought machines in I was in Slovenia in a barn,
Okay.
and there was in the next wall you could hear cows going, and there was a machine in there that we sold to a customer in Spain. We bought machines out of caves that were like, you know, belonged to the United States Arsenal. We bought machines from Amish people. We've bought machines from uh, just crazy people. And so,
So
you
just a
know,
question there. How do
yeah,
you, places you describe, very different, very remote,
yeah.
how would you go about sourcing and isolating those really random spots where you're able to find those machines?
Like, how do we find them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you mentioned a cave in and Slovenia where there were cows in the background. How do you go about finding
Well,
treasure in those spots?
yeah, I mean, you know, to be honest, it was so we had a really good customer in Spain. We had sold a lot of machines to, and they had this one machine they were looking for. It's called a Schutte. It's a German screw machine, but they were looking for this strange model that was made in like the 60s, and it had to be configured in a weird way. And I was on this internet site. There's an internet sites for that list these kind of machines. And uh, sure enough, found this one, and it was in Slovenia. And so we joined up and took a road trip and went in there, and it was a crazy story because the it was a woman and her husband, and they couldn't speak English, and I was with a couple people from Spain. I could speak Italian. She'd speak Italian to me, and then I'd speak Italian. I'd speak English to my friend Javier, and then Javier would speak Spanish to his guy, and we're all sitting at this table in this tiny
Hilarious.
town in Slovenia. It's like the one restaurant in the whole place. We're eating pizza in this restaurant. But I mean, that's a good example first of serendipity. You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and define it now. You know, I first got into it because as you mentioned, I have a podcast. It's called Swarfcast. The reason it's called Swarfcast is it's this word. It's actually a British word for all of
A
the
British word.
Swarf,
Really?
Swarf.
Okay.
It's a
Well, I
British
don't know what that
word
means.
for all the grime and chips and oil that's at the bottom of a machine.
Okay. Okay. A
Um,
machinist would know that word.
they
In
would,
the,
particularly a British machinist would know
okay.
that word.
Okay.
United States, sometimes we just call them chips,
Yeah.
but
And our podcasters will know. Our audience will know that now as well. Your
yeah,
audience, my audience.
yeah. So on my podcast, on Swarfcast, we I interviewed this guy. And usually I interview people in our industry, but the other thing I like to do is, sometimes it's a little eclectic. And I interviewed this guy. His name is Christian Busch. He's this German professor, and he wrote a book called The Serendipity Mindset. And basically, it's how you find luck, how you make your own luck. You know, those people out there, they always seem to get the lucky break. They
Mm.
always seem to
Yeah.
be the ones who land the job that everybody wants. And it's not like they got it necessarily because they were smarter than everybody else, but they were in the quote unquote right place at the right time. They knew the right person,
Yeah.
right? Or, the guy who they find their partner of their
Yeah.
dreams. And you're just like, why are they always with great people? And, so this guy made a study of what these people do that make them successful versus other people who feel less lucky. There's a lot of things that appear to be coincidence, but and maybe they are coincidence, but maybe these coincidences were created by the people who got them. And in our business, in buying and selling these machines around the world, um, it we rely on these coincidences for our livelihood. So there's a bunch of things you can do. This guy came up with these tactics of how you can create serendipity in business and in your life. So the first one, and some of these things they're very intuitive, and you go, well, yeah, duh, that makes sense. But you become mindful of them when you know about them, when you hear about them, and then you can use them. For instance, the first thing is called serendipity bombs. This is where, say, for instance, you or I, we have podcasts, and we're looking to get like the best guest that and we have these dream guests that we'd
Mm.
love to get.
Yeah.
And what you do, rather than just, contact one, you pick out, 6, 10,
Mm.
our 10 dream guests, and we contact all of them. And often, at least one out of the 10 is going to give you the time of day. But if you had just been like, tunnel vision, I'm only going to call one, you may not get lucky. So these are, and so this is sort of the whole like numbers game thing. But if you do this tactic, then you can quote unquote get lucky. Now, there's a more interesting thing though. For instance, this is what's called serendipity hooks. And serendipity hooks are things that you can say in a conversation that can cause luck to happen. So for instance, the simplest, way of thinking about it is if you are at a party and somebody asks you what you do for a living. So if they ask me what I did for a living, I could say, well, I'm a machinery dealer. And most people would go, okay, huh? But if I was to say, I'm a machinery dealer and I also have a podcast and but I'm actually really passionate about salsa dancing. I do that. I used to do that whenever I had spare time, but now I don't have any spare time because I have a 1-year-old child. And all of a sudden you have like 4 or 5 things to talk
Yeah.
about. And you can strike a chord with these people. Like, you know, they may not have anything to say about, your first
Mm.
occupation, but all of a sudden you connect with them. And maybe this person turns out they have something that could really help you one day. Or maybe you could possibly be a resource for them. So, we might use this, for instance, in our work where somebody contacts us because they see a machine on our website that seems interesting to them. Before I call them back, I'll go to their website and I'll look. So, like, say there's a machine called a Star. Okay, so say they contact me about a machine called a Star. I'll look at their website and I see, oh, they have Stars, but they also have Acmes and Wickmans and Citizens. These are all names of machines. And so when I call, I'll be ready. So after we talk about the machine that they called about, I'll say, well, by the way, I know I saw on your website that you you also have these machines. You're not interested in one of those, are you? Say this exact thing happened to me yesterday with this guy from Mexico. He called about a machine. The machine was like way too expensive. The machine cost $450,000 for him. And I don't think he was really interested, but I went to his site and I saw, he's got this one, this one, this one. I was offered these machines, 2 months ago. I said, well, what about this? And he goes, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. I could use 2 of those. So
But
all of a sudden,
yeah,
uh, the person comes for one thing and then something way better
mm,
comes out of it.
yeah, or way more relevant to his needs.
True, true. Like another thing we do, my company, we've gotten into buying and selling companies in our industry. So like the owner is retiring and we find another company to buy that company. So after every conversation I have, I say, hey, one more thing before I go. I have to tell you, like we are in the business of buying and selling, brokering businesses. Are you guys looking to acquire a business or are you looking to sell your business? And, several times just they called about something and they didn't even buy anything. They were just calling to sort of research something. They were
Mm.
just curious. And you could have just sent them an email saying, here's the price of the machine, and then never talk to them again. Or you could have just told them, yeah, here's the price, and then they go, okay, whatever. But instead, it was this company in Canada the other day. Well, not the other day, it was about a year ago. And they called about a machine. They weren't interested at all. And now we're about to close a deal the end of this month. So that's another really
Mm.
great tactic.
So just to delve into that a little bit and to how when you, I guess, yeah, let's go back to Christian. So when you interviewed Christian, serendipity, was it front of mind for you at that point? Were you aware that the importance of serendipity or to be aware of it and to look out for it in moments?
Yeah, well, I mean, first I heard him on a podcast
Mm.
and I said, "Whoa, this is what we do all the time in our business." We're constantly like somebody tells us about one machine and then the next day we somebody asks us about this machine and I go, "Oh, my friend, he has that." And I thought, "Whoa, this is what we use, but these are like really interesting ways to harness it, just so I mean another thing to do is to just be really mindful of these of the potential for serendipity to occur. Just have your ears and eyes open constantly. That,
Yeah.
you know, you just heard about this one thing yesterday, and so I mean, so for instance, yesterday we were contacted about these machines for sale from this company that like went bankrupt. And there's this machine, it's called a Sharon, and this machine probably, it's this German made machine. It probably costs like $400,000, $500,000 if you bought it brand new. And they've been trying to sell this machine, and they want to sell it for very, very little money. But here's the thing. Then I found out it's been sitting in a shed under a tarp for a year. And I was like, oh man, like, well, this isn't good. We can buy it for nothing, but like, who can we, who can we sell it to in good conscience? And then I had a guy who called me later in the day. His name is Chris. And this guy, they call him the mad scientist of machines. The name of his former company actually was called Mad Scientist. So anyways, he calls, he's like, hey, I have a customer who's looking for a CNC mill, which is the same kind of machine as this. And I say, well, that's funny. You should ask about that. We've been offered this machine. But I'm like, the problem is it's been sitting for a year. And he goes, oh my God, this brand of machine is like the best brand. And this guy can repair any machine. And he could go and we could buy this machine together. And if anybody could like certify it as good, it would be this guy. And so it's a matter of just like putting two and two together, connecting these dots that this guy, he asked about the same category of machine that we just heard about. And out of anybody I know, this is the one guy who could fix this machine and make it something that would be good.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of like keeping your ears and eyes open and just being ready for it, which is why I keep a serendipity diary every day. Every day before I go to sleep, I write down at least one serendipitous thing that happened that day, and then I categorize it. Like,
Okay.
This was an accident that I made something good out of. This was something, I learned from. And you can kind of stretch it into, like, the other day, my child, he's like 1 3/4 years, and he was playing on this jungle gym outside, and he fell. And it was scary. He fell from up high, and I felt like a sort of irresponsible parent at that very moment. And then I chose to look at it. I said, all right, this is serendipity, because now I know next time I'm going to be more careful. So this is a bad thing that I made a good thing out of. Some people might not say that that's, luck, but I choose to say that that's luck. And so I'm constantly looking for things like that. And by constantly writing it down and constantly talking about it, because the more you talk about something, the more you sort of understand it. So that's another thing, keeping the diary.
Yeah, but a diary is a good idea, something I hadn't considered. So I'm just thinking about people that are listening to this, that maybe serendipity is a word that they may have heard. Some may be more familiar with it than others, but like making it part of their daily practice from a positive perspective. Is there a case where they need to maybe understand the difference between serendipity and luck? Would you have any advice for people listening that are potentially asking that question?
Serendipity and coincidence. Yeah, that is a constant interesting question that I'm asking, and different people have studied coincidence. Trying to think there's another word for it. It was on, I had just heard it the other day. You know, a lot of people think that there are coincidences happening around the world where, you know, two twins, for instance, will they'll be in separate countries and they'll both feel the same feeling on the same day,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I've heard of that. Some of it.
I mean, look, I'm always exploring it, and I know people that I like to think nowadays that there really are no coincidences, and but it's up to you to decide that, right?
Yeah.
To decide if you're gonna make something be lucky or not.
Okay. So
It's a really good question, and I understand if people are skeptical and wonder about it, and you know, but it's just some people are
I guess
always
it's quite abstract, isn't it? So it's difficult to kind of nail it. But I wouldn't personally be skeptical.
synchronicity. That's what it's called,
Yeah.
synchronicity.
Okay. Okay. I personally wouldn't be skeptical around it because I do believe in serendipity. I do think that you have those moments. What I was intrigued to ask you is, do you ever maybe think back at missed opportunities that potentially there was some serendipity there that maybe I didn't take advantage of it just because of my headspace at that time. I just wasn't in that zone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and this is one of the things, the other thing that this guy prescribes. Actually, I was about to say it. When you're writing in your diary, say you get to a certain point that day and you cannot think of anything, you're racking your brain. He says, write down something that you could have done that might have created the serendipity. Perhaps you had a customer and you could have asked them a serendipity hook, told them a serendipity hook, asked them a question about a certain thing. And instead you just didn't. Or maybe you were at a conference and you didn't introduce yourself to
Mm.
anybody. So sure, I mean, there's lots of times where
Yeah.
you could have done things to create the serendipity. And I'm not here to like blame anybody if good things aren't happening to them. You know, it's not necessarily your fault, but there are lots of possibilities out there.
Yeah. And I think to me, that's the attractive quality of it because I think with when we're aware of situations, and you've used some great examples just in business and other things, but when we are aware that situations can reveal themselves to you, and I think it's good to offer good information about you. You mentioned about you introduce yourself, you know, you're a machine dealer, podcast, father, lots of other things going on. The more information you get, the more opportunity there is
Yeah.
for something to happen. And
Networking is huge too. Like
sorry,
just the networking, people, you know,
yeah,
creating dots. The more people you know, the more opportunity for magic there
mhm,
is. I was what was I reading? Um, if you were to meet, you know, when you meet one person, if they, you know, everybody they know and people they know, you know, the whole like 6 degrees of separation,
yeah,
like Kevin Bacon, we're all really separated by way fewer people than that very often. And and one of the things you do is when you meet someone new, the first thing you do is you think to yourself, who else do I know that could help this guy
yeah,
or this woman? And then you become the matchmaker
mm,
and you get this whole like energy coming back at you when you're helping other people.
mm,
The more dots you create, the more good things
mm,
come back at you. And it's just really
yeah,
incredible because then other people will who you helped, they'll come back to you. Maybe
yeah,
they have some way they can help you and you create these amazing connections. It's really wonderful.
yeah. So I'm just thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking around the people listening. this is a statement, and maybe you can qualify it and answer it. But for people listening, I'm thinking if we want positive outcomes or interesting outcomes, and serendipity is a good way of maybe sourcing those and finding those, because so some of the examples you used, if we ask questions, if we listen, then there's an opportunity that we can achieve something positive, whether it be, I don't know, a girl or a guy that we want to meet. If we ask them questions, if we give them more information, then maybe that might happen.
And that's and there's something to distinguish it besides just asking questions, because like I'm a good question asker. I went an entire year meeting at least one new person every day. This was a project I made. But the thing is, did a lot of serendipity happen from all the people I met? No. I mean, some of the people, but the thing is, it's important to say things about yourself, to talk some. Being a great listener is amazing. And if you're a great listener, the other person's going to think they had an amazing conversation. But to cause this magic to happen, sometimes that person has to know who you are and know about you. You have to figure out how to do it in the right way where you're not a jerk and only talking about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you have those moments where I'm sure most people can think that it may have happened to them, or maybe it's happened to somebody they know. But you meet somebody, it could be a work scenario. We'll use work scenario as an example. I could have met somebody 3 months ago, talked a little bit about me and vice versa. Then they might contact me or email me to say, "Hi, Paul, we spoke at this event, had a great time. It was lovely meeting you. Is it okay if I introduce you to so and so because you spoke about X, Y, Z?" And that I know that they've got a lot of interest in that, and I think you guys would get on quite well. But Reid Hoffman, I'm a big fan of his podcast.
Who is it?
Reid Hoffman, Masters of Scale, the PayPal guy and the co-founder of LinkedIn.
Okay, you'll have to send that to me.
He's got a great podcast, Masters of Scale, and he talks about the idea. Although he's had incredible success, he still talks about the idea that he likes to meet different people. Like still, he might do a lunch or he might do some type of engagement because I think it's serendipity as well, because you never know in 3 months' time or whatever that interaction might be quite useful, and he's got examples of where it has been useful, whether it's for him or whether he's been able to connect two people together. So somebody of his success still keen to kind of
I mean that's really smart. It's smart to like look in other places, like sometimes I'll be I listen to podcasts in the morning and in the evening in my commute. Sometimes I'll just look for a random podcast. I'll just like type in something and see what comes up. And sometimes just doing that random stuff, like you'll just learn something that totally enriches you. It's important to be eclectic, to for your own creativity, and that's another thing I do, just like constantly learning different things, constantly meeting different things. I do this thing, it's called Lunch Club.
I know Lunch Club.
Lunch Club.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, I mean it's people do it all over the world. You
it's interesting.
Sign up. It's like a sort of a professional speed dating thing, and then they make these 45-minute matches for you, and you'll talk to people around the world. They'll tell you what they do, you tell them what they do. Sometimes the people are incredible, sometimes they don't give a shit what you have to say.
Maybe but I've been on one before where I haven't used it this year. I used it up until I think the halfway from last year. But anyway, some guy immediately just wanted to show me a presentation, which is kind of like not what it's about.
Was it about like his rental car company or something?
No, it wasn't a rental car company. Maybe
my guy.
Maybe that's to come.
This guy, he said to me, I always ask people, so how long you been on Lunch Club? You
Yeah,
know, and
same.
he's like, I've been on about 2 years. I was like, how many people you talked to? Oh, I've talked to about 300.
Mm.
And I go, wow, you must have met so many amazing people. So many. I mean, he's like, no, I really haven't met anybody interesting.
Really well.
I'm basically just here just to talk about myself.
Yeah,
And then he proceeded to talk about himself.
yeah.
But he had no serendipity hooks in there that
Mm.
interested me. And
Mm.
I said at the end, I was like,
Well,
hey,
that's
you
a
might
bit,
as well. Can I give you feedback? Maybe you should ask a question.
yeah.
But I
But
met my life coach on Lunch Club. So I
really,
mean, it's
okay. So yeah, you do meet some. Now I've met some wonderful people on there that you connect. So sometimes I don't know what you do, but sometimes you keep the connections on Lunch Club, or the connection can exist outside of Lunch Club. If you're in the same city, clearly you can meet.
have you ever done that? Have you ever met in person?
Good question, actually. I don't think I've met in person anybody on Lunch Club actually. So yeah, it's a good question. But there are people that so a lot of the people that I've met actually aren't based in the UK. A lot of them are based overseas,
Mm-hmm.
and some of
But
those
see,
guys,
that's the serendipity. Like how there. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you can
mm,
meet people overseas
yeah,
like that. Will expand your horizons,
mm,
and
yeah,
that's the kind of thing you
mm.
know you use to create serendipity.
And you do have those moments, but there are people that we've discussed business together because there's been some synergy. Not that is so. Some people go on it exclusively for business. Some people go on it to connect and maybe business. I'm kind of like an open book with it really. I joined during the pandemic,
Me
so
too.
but yeah, so there wasn't that ability to go and meet people in person. That was totally taken away from us. So the opportunity to kind of connect with people and still meet different people was Lunch Club, and it is a good tool, and you can meet some great people. And I think to your point, I think we do have to remember to be mindful, to not just to ask some questions, to drive conversation, because if we don't do that, then you can't have it's going to be difficult to really have positive outcomes just in terms of serendipity, what we're discussing today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, every day in my like morning rituals, I um I say to myself, I try to say like 5 times. I say, I am a serendipity magnet. I create, I see, I seize opportunity
Mm,
everywhere. And then by you saying that in the morning, the hope is that it'll just get your mind in the right mindset. So your eyes are open. Where's the
mm,
serendipity? Where's the
yeah,
serendipity? And of course, it's the whole adage where if you're looking too hard, you're not going to find it. But I mean, you have to have your eyes open. Maybe you need to be like chill about it and not like hoping that you're going to hit the lottery every day, but you just have to be mindful. That's
yeah. And I don't think and I agree, I totally agree with you. And I don't think it's about hitting the lottery. Like an opportunity can be very small but very impactful.
hmm
So I like the idea of serendipity because it keeps us aware. It keeps us interested in other people, not just interested in ourselves. Yeah, and it's what life's about. It's about being aware. It's about being more aware about what's going on in the world. And clearly, from a selfish perspective, if I can become more aware of opportunities as they navigate around me, then definitely I want to be engaged with that. And I think some of the practices, not some, the practices that you use
yeah.
definitely are something that anybody listening or watching who is keen to not let opportunities slip them by. And these opportunities can come in so many different shapes
I,
and sizes and guises. I think serendipity is a nice tool maybe to
I mean,
support them with that.
I know I already asked you this at the beginning, but I want to
Mm,
just go back. I mean, is the name of your podcast based on the idea of serendipity? Is that really
Well,
why you named it that and you just didn't
no,
didn't call it
it's a
that?
very good question. So let me think before I answer. Um, yeah, to be honest, it is, but it kind of, I like the ironic nature of the title. So, and it is serendipitous, but I don't think I was probably thinking of the word when I named it. So,
Sure.
so to clarify that, so I think, and I didn't know this at the time, it was a journey that I was on, kind of still on, that there are opportunities that exist within difficult moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think me then, particularly, better now, but certainly then, was very was not able to kind of spot them because you would lean into the negative. There was
All
no,
right. So you were talking about the exact same thing. You're
yeah,
talking about
I
being
did,
mindful and looking for
yeah,
serendipity.
yeah, I didn't have the technique. So if I'd met you, right, what year did I launch? 2018 is when I had the idea. It didn't launch for maybe another year, but I was looking for serendipity. I was looking for answers. I was looking for the ability to reframe. I became aware that it existed. And then I guess the quest is now is to open up this to not just me, but to other people. And for me, similar to you, you've got your daily practices. I kind of do as well, but the podcast is a practice for me as well because I want to talk to people like you. I want to talk to other people that
Yeah.
have different insights and tools and techniques that they can impart to me, but also to people watching and listening.
Yeah. Well, no, I absolutely. And I mean, the one of the podcasts I listened to, you did a podcast about masterminding, and this was serendipity. My life coach had mentioned
Yeah.
um, masterminding, and I was so it was like the seed was planted in my head, and then I made this combination of when I was looking, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be on this podcast, so I ought to
Mm.
listen to at least one episode. So I was
It was
looking down,
Steve,
and I
wasn't it?
saw that
It was Steve Preda, I think, was the Steve was the
Steve
guest.
Prado was the one.
Steve, yeah.
Well, so that's connecting the dots. Steve Prado was the one that I interviewed, and he was on your
Yeah.
podcast. So
So
then,
serendipity. So being
right.
aware.
Right. But then I went and looked and I found a podcast episode of yours. I don't remember who it was, but it was a thing
I
about
remember it was
masterminding.
I think it was Aaron. I think it was
It was really,
Aaron
really good.
Walker. Aaron Walker it was. I remember.
Well, I would definitely recommend that episode to people.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
So
put that on the show notes. And I'll put your
so
podcast on
I
the show notes
just,
as well.
I mean, that was serendipity.
Yeah.
Um and just making connections
Mm.
everywhere um and now if you hear my show and this makes you want to learn about what I do, that's serendipity.
Yeah.
You may not like you may not, a lot of it is just about specifically about the business that I'm in, but then I do solo episodes where I talk about serendipity.
Yeah, no,
Um
I've been listening to them to that. So I've been gorging myself on your content for the last 2 days.
really,
Yeah, of course.
thank you.
So I've
Thank
been
you.
listening to, we haven't covered this, but maybe we can just quickly sneak this in.
Sure.
So, pin bowling and
Pin
bowling,
action.
yeah, pin action. So maybe
That's a
what
favorite of mine.
so what I liked about this, that bowling was something that you did at college, but how
Well,
you
let's give people a little
okay, yeah,
context.
give us some background.
All right. So in bowling, is bowling popular in the UK? You guys do like your own kind of bowling, right?
It does have presence. To be honest, I can't answer that question, but I do see it. There are bowling rinks and bowling clubs, so it does exist. It does have.
Okay. So in bowling, you what you want to happen is obviously everybody knows the rules. You want to knock down as many pins as possible, but there are certain ways there are techniques. You notice if you watch the professional bowlers on TV, they throw the ball in this big hook. They don't throw it straight.
Mm,
And the reason they throw it in that big hook is because it gives you the greatest probability for the most pins to get knocked down. And because it comes in on that angle. And this is what's called pin action. The lots of pins hitting each other because you're hitting them the right way.
Yeah.
And so, that's serendipity. Whereas how one thing bounces off another, and this can go in lots of different things in your life. Just momentum. One stock goes up. If Apple goes up, often that's going to make Microsoft go up because the two correlate off one another.
Yeah.
Or it could be internal, like, say you're on the prowl trying to date people and meet more people. All of a sudden you start meeting people, and then your confidence grows. All of a sudden you're going to meet even more people, and everything's going to the momentum's going to come, and everything's just going to like hit each other. And that's pin action. So you're just creating pin action in your life.
Okay. Yeah. No, just a great example. I was thinking around, actually, no, I wanted to mention this actually to you to see whether ask you if this is serendipity. So I'm a big fan of Jerry Seinfeld.
Love it.
Yeah, so I'm a massive fan. And I don't know whether you've seen the clip when he's on the Howard Stern show. Howard Stern's interviewing him, and so Howard Stern says to him, like comedy, your material. When do you find time to put it together? When are you researching it? And Jerry Seinfeld says, I'm all the time. And Howard Stern says, well, that's painful. You can't be researching all the time. And Jerry Seinfeld, yeah, this conversation potentially could be material.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
He's on the job, like literally as soon as he wakes. He could be having breakfast with his wife. There might be an opportunity there. He's absorbed in that because
that's called being mindful.
Yeah, that's being mindful. Is that serendipity? Would you class that as serendipity?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's he's using all of the things around him as inspiration for his craft. Yeah, it's absolutely serendipity that Howard Stern asked him that question. Now he'll probably use that he'll probably use that in a routine. So it's absolutely serendipity. That's how he creates his material.
So, and that's a great lesson for everybody listening, watching. If we're in a craft, whether it be our work or whether it be a hobby, we want to be the top of the tree at whatever that looks like for us, then those are kind of the extremes that to him it potentially maybe is an extreme. I don't know how we would describe it, but for him it's like the best job in the world because he's creating content, he's creating sketches, and a conversation is his playground to find that material. So that's a pretty good job to me.
Yeah,
I wish I was good at comedy.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I are, like we get ideas from all over the place where for the shows we do.
Yeah,
you might
totally.
you might meet somebody in lunch club, and
yes, I'm gonna look for that car salesman,
or maybe or just things like I pitched you to be on your podcast and you gave me the time of day. You actually read the email or had somebody read the email.
I read the email, I researched you, and then I responded. So I got the email. I thought,
right.
Okay, I don't know Noah.
And if somebody was lazy and were just like, oh, I don't know this joker, whatever, he doesn't do anything that I understand. He's in the United States. I have, then, we wouldn't have met.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have influenced each other.
Absolutely. And be able to put out wonderful insights into the ether for other people to absorb. I'm mindful of your time because it's later in the day for you and you're probably still in work mode. So what I guess wanted to ask you is a couple of things. So your podcast, Where can people find you? If there are people that are machine dealers, it might not be them, it might be their uncle, it might be their dad, it might be their next door neighbor. How can
Serendipity.
serendipity, how can they get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Well, the podcast, again, it's called Swarfcast, Swarfcast. Which is it's part of a website called Today's Machining World. And then if you are looking for a machine tool, you can go to Graff Pinkert. That's Graff, as in Frank, and then Pinkert. And yeah, Noah Graff. I'm on LinkedIn. I hope you at least learn something, and I hope to try to leave my mark on the world, affect somebody. That's one of the things I'm going for. So I hope people got a little something out of it, and I would love it if people looked me up if they had any questions or wanted to check out my stuff. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to
No,
be
I
here,
love it. No, I
Paul,
love it.
and it was fun.
I've enjoyed our conversations. I'm fairly emphatic there will be more. And I think I have one last question for you. So there is a recurring question on the podcast. So
Dun, dun, dun,
if you
dun.
could invite three inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past. Who might you invite?
3 inspirational people?
Yeah, three inspirational people.
Yeah, I was thinking about this beforehand.
I've got one. Can I mention one? It doesn't have to
Oh,
be,
it'll totally help me.
it
You
doesn't
you
have to be
mentioned,
it doesn't have to be this person, but having listened to your content today,
yeah,
and yesterday.
Nostradamus. No, I'm just kidding.
No, so Robert Cialdini.
Oh, love Robert Cialdini. I think that would be somebody.
Would he make the table?
Were you familiar with Robert Cialdini before?
You know what? I should be more familiar with him than I am. But so
Known as the godfather
yeah,
of marketing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I need to read more of his content and listen to more
My
of his content.
suggestion would
So,
be to listen to some podcasts he's been on
yeah.
to sort of give you a shortcut
Have
to
you
a lot
reached
of the
out to?
stuff.
He's still with us. He's still with us.
What?
He's still with us, Robert
Oh
Cialdini.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
have you reached out to him?
I did. I did, and they told me before that he was too busy to be on the podcast. He had a new book coming out, but I think I need to try
Yeah,
again because I think he's
this could be
awesome.
serendipity.
Serendipity that you encouraged me to try it
Yeah.
again.
Why
I
not?
agree.
Why not?
Why not?
Why
Why
not?
not?
Who dares?
I follow him on LinkedIn, and he's always putting out interesting
Mm.
things.
Okay, so is he one of your three?
Sure, he could be one of those
Okay,
3.
I need two more.
Um, and this is a guy I don't know if I'd want to eat dinner with him or not, but I've been wanting to I was hoping to interview this guy for the podcast and couldn't track him down. His name is Jim Lovell. He's an astronaut. You ever seen the movie Apollo 13?
Yes, many years ago.
He's Tom Hanks's character.
Okay,
He
okay.
saves the day on there. I don't know. For some reason, it seems like he would be interesting. Mm, maybe Moses. Just
Okay.
get a little leadership.
Yeah.
Uh, and Quentin Tarantino. I love his
So
movies.
you
I'm a
that's four.
filmmaker.
That's four.
Yeah, but you mentioned one. You said one of them.
Okay,
So
okay, cool. Okay, that makes for a good that makes for
and I'll just give a shout because my wife, whenever I've talked about this question with her, she always says that she would love to have dinner with Sacha Baron Cohen because she thinks that he would
okay,
just be really interesting and fun and funny to talk to. I think he'd
okay.
be fun.
Yeah. Well, my cousin is a good friend of his, so maybe that could happen. You never know.
See, that's serendipity, connecting dots.
Serendipity, you never know. If you guys happen to be, I don't know him, so if I reached out to him dinner, I would get a firm no. But there are other people that maybe would have more persuasion
Do you
than
live in
me.
the United States?
I think he's States UK, so I think he's probably his success. I guess he's
Does he have a house in Staines?
probably. If your wife does have dinner with him, maybe she can ask him that question.
Staines massive.
The stays massive, yeah, yeah. Noah,
Thank you.
How fantastic! It's been amazing talking to you for the second time. Love the
It was great.
conversation.
It was really
Thank you for
great. Thank you
sharing
so
your-
much.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your insights. Very helpful.
Awesome. All right, everybody,
Okay.
have an awesome.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do subscribe. It really does help the channel. And please, if you like, please even share it with a friend or a colleague. And we're always looking to grow the show. So please do share this particular episode on serendipity. If you know anybody that really isn't aware of opportunities that could exist for them, this is definitely the episode for them. And your feedback is most welcome. We're always keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So until the next time, take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.